Jacob has another significant encounter with God in his life, and it happens in Genesis chapter 32. At this point in Jacob's life, he's returning to face the brother that he ran away from, the brother that he cheated, the brother that he extorted, the brother who was out for blood. And he gets this sense that it's important that he returns to start again, go back to the beginning. And as he does that, he prays in verse 11 that God would rescue him because he was afraid of his brother. The first encounter that Jacob has is when he's running away, and God promises to be with him, to protect him, to bless him and make him fruitful. And at that point in Jacob's life, he really needed hope. He was facing the consequences of his actions, something that we all have to do. We all have to take responsibility for what we've done. But God can turn the things that of our past around. God can turn those around, and when we're faithful, bring us into a new future. And here is Jacob returning with the results of that faithfulness. He's had a fruitful time. He's coming back with his wives, his children, immense amounts of property and possessions. God has truly been faithful to the promise that he gave him when he first appeared. In this encounter, we see Jacob clearing the way and finds himself all alone, separated from everything that he's familiar with. He's exposed, he's vulnerable, he's open, he's searching, he's reaching out. He's come to a place of inconvenience, but he's also come to a place where he's hungry. He's hungry to know God, hungry to meet with God. And it's often the case that when we want to meet with God and we want an encounter with God, it comes when we get to a point of really needing and really being hungry and really seeking after him, truly reaching out. And this encounter that Jacob has is different to probably any other encounter that I can think of in the Bible, because God not only appears to Jacob, but they end up wrestling all night. And I just love this picture of someone wrestling with God. Do you ever find yourself wrestling with God? Do you ever have moments of doubt or uncertainty, or moments where you're feeling scared or you're struggling to trust God? For me, when I read this account of Jacob wrestling with God, it reminds me of all those times we wrestle with God. We wrestle with understanding, we wrestle with circumstances we face, we long for breakthrough, and we contend with God to try and claim and get hold of those promises that he's made. At the end of this encounter, Jacob says to God, I want to know your name. Tell me what your name is. And God doesn't actually respond to that, which is quite interesting, because in the other times God's revealed his name as part of his character and his identity. But I think there's an element of God saying, actually, I can't just be called on demand. God's saying, I'm not yours to control. I'm not yours to dictate to. You see, God revealing himself and the relationship we have with God, it actually comes out of the holiness of God and the grace of God, that God gives us something that we don't deserve. We have no rights to it, but actually God chooses to have that relationship with us because he's a relational God. And out of this, Jacob goes and recognises God's presence again, and calls this place, the place of encounter, he calls it Peniel, because he says, I've seen the face of God and survived. And out of it, what we see is that prayer that he had in verse 11 to rescue him from Esau. He's wrestled with God, and now he can face the new day. He can face this future that he's scared of, because he's actually met with God, had this incredible encounter with God, and now he's got the strength and the encouragement to face what lies ahead. You see, God is a holy God. He's a God who's looking for consistency and faithfulness in us. He's looking for that sense of commitment and obedience. And in Jacob, he finds a man who has learnt from his mistakes and has been willing to do that. And I wonder, are you at a place where you are willing to put your mistakes behind you and begin a new adventure with God?